Warren, thanks for jumping on the call. I've actually heard great things about you and your work at Paychex, so very excited to have you on the podcast. Um, I'm sure most of the folks would know what Paychex does, but if you want to give a very short 30-second elevator pitch, I think the audience would appreciate that.
Very good. Paychex is one of the leading HCM providers that provides small and mid-sized businesses with outsourced solutions for payroll, benefits, insurance, and retirement plans. We are the largest 401k provider for small and mid-sized businesses, and we're one of the largest payroll services provider for small and mid-sized businesses. We also provide complete outsourcing HR solutions for businesses, including our PEO. And we're a 52-year-old company with a very strong and robust brand. And that is one of the things I care deeply about, and I spend every day thinking about. I wake up in the morning thinking about what can we do to, number one, support our customers, and two, how do we strengthen and establish and maintain a really reputable and high integrity associated with our brand.
Okay, Warren. One thing I observed when I looked at Paychex's website is that the website looks very modern and the messaging is so simple and clear. It doesn't look like a 55-year-old company that is sort of stuck in the old age. So kudos to you and your team for building that brand up in the last few years or some not, but it's been fantastic.
Thank you for that. I truly believe that the brand is the greatest corporate asset. No question about it. It needs to be actively managed, and we need to ensure consistency. So we have very strict brand guidelines. Myself and my team have developed really thoughtful brand guidelines based on insight from our customers. And also, it has to be authentic. Right. We are a hero company. We manage people's money. We manage people's employee relationships. We manage really sensitive things in terms of what business owners care about. So integrity is really important to us. Financial and fiscal responsibility is really important to us. And our reputation is really important to us. We're not kind of a hoodie wearing kind of company.
Right.
We are, a professional services company that supports businesses of all sizes.
That's great, Warren. I think one thing that I observed is that you are very passionate about brand in general, right? And even when you're doing some prep calls, you are very, very sort of focused on talking about brand. There is one interesting stat you mentioned about a research done by Google and Bain. Can you sort of talk about that first before we dive more into the brand building aspects of what you're doing? Yeah.
I'm happy to do this. This was research that was conducted a couple of years ago, and it is consistent with other research that's been done in the marketplace. In B2B businesses, when they make a decision about seeking out a new provider or a new product or a new vendor, the decision makers usually starts on day one with 3 brands just top of mind, coming off the top of their head. Then they usually establish or build a committee within their organization to do research on these particular providers. And they bring in as many 7 people to make those decisions. And so usually it's an end user or somebody who's using the technology or using the product, somebody in the finance organization or an executive at the company. So after all that research is done, 90% of the time, 90% of the vendors day one to be on that day one list.
That's awesome, right? So, this also sort of speaks volumes about how important the emotional aspects of brand is, right? Because once you're able to connect people with your brand, and if you're in the top 3 list, and if they feel inclined towards you, that's what the research says. They're going to pick the vendor that they think they are emotionally connected to, right?
That's exactly right. And the other research that's shown is, particularly in B2B buyers, if you can provide content that is of value, that helps people, the first piece of content that you can create, that you can engage that relationship both intellectually and emotionally, to your point, there have a huge percentage, I think it's 70-something% probability that they will go with the brand that helps them on that first piece of content.
That's
So we
awesome.
spend a lot of time, myself and my team, put a lot of thought into our thought leadership, into our content development. We are very careful not to be overly promotional.
Right.
Rather, our intent is to provide thought leadership, education, and understanding. As if you're a small and mid-sized business owner, you're wearing multiple hats. You don't have the privilege of having specific functions where people have privilege of focus on specific areas. So it's very hard to be an expert and keep up to date on state compliance, regulatory compliance at the national level, how to manage their taxes, how to manage their benefits programs, what are some sort of performance management capabilities or health benefits that might make sense for them to provide to their employees. So it's really helpful for us to be able to provide that education, guidance, and awareness, and to help them maneuver these kinds of topics.
That's great, man. I think my question to you is, a lot of markets are competitive, like very competitive, and I'm sure
Mhm.
payroll market is a large market, but also very competitive, right? And your point about brand building makes a lot of sense there. Any interesting, to your point, thought leadership programs, content programs that you have seen been successful that you've tried out? Whatever it comes to your mind, would love to hear that because of an
Sure.
important point. Yeah.
So we realized that the majority of our go-to-market strategy at Paychex is through our sales organization. We have 3,000 3,000 members of our sales organization, and they've been sort of our primary go-to-market communication vehicle, if you will, or strategy to speak with customers and prospects. During COVID, when we had our sales organization was asked to work remotely, to work in their home offices, because here in New York State and across the country, there was orders for people to kind of leave their workplace. So we realized that it was really important to focus less on acquiring new customers at that point in time, but more importantly, to help our existing customers through a very difficult time. So we put all of our corporate resources, not only here in marketing, but our IT technology, our product teams, our compliance and regulatory teams. We met every day to essentially put together every single thing we could do to help businesses during that time. We encourage them to maintain their employees. We encourage them not to lay people off. We provided information at the city, state, and federal level around relief programs that were available for small businesses. We created content on our website. We created webinars to explain some of the relief programs, and we created actually programs and applications that we could autofill for our customers so that they could just have signature-ready programs where they could support that, where they could submit them for consideration for relief. So we knew focusing on customers, being relentlessly focused on customers were important. And at that time, we created webinars. We would have as many at one point, 23,000 people attend our webinars to understand some of the regulatory programs that were available from the United States government. But in addition, we put together several other thought leadership programs. And that was something that we've refined and fine-tuned over the last few years since COVID. So we have a very robust webinar strategy. So we create content in-house. We bring subject matter experts, not only our own in-house subject matter experts on regulations or on industry or product capabilities, but we also bring subject matter experts and thought leaders, industry people from across the country into our organization. And in our last fiscal year, we had a 90% retention, showing that those customers of ours who attended a webinar were 90% more likely to stay with us. We also saw that we had an increase in terms of the revenue per client, significantly increased revenue for those customers who attended our webinars. So not only is it the right thing to do from a thought leadership standpoint, it's the right thing to do for our business, because retention and revenue generation is something really important to our business.
Right. Well, so you touched upon an interesting point, which I really like, is that during COVID, when people were scrambling for information, you all became the destination for information, right? And that is so powerful because people will come to your website, look for content, and then would also look to you guys for what they should do next, right? That's where a lot of B2B brands would want to get to. Like, how do you create your own media company where put out content that attracts a lot of people? So kudos to you guys for that one. One important thing we touched upon is
It's one of the things I'm most proud of, to be honest with you. So we do create the content in-house. We have regulatory experts in-house that are managing and monitoring all the legislation at a state, local, and federal level. We've created on our website, we've created a state map. You can hover over the state,
nice.
or you can sort of have a drop-down menu to kind of look at your particular state to understand everything about wage laws, paid leave activities, other legislation that's affecting OSHA requirements, everything that's a small, mid-sized business would need to know. We've made it readily available because we want our customers and prospective customers to trust us and to understand that we are experts, and then we know this as well as, these regulatory agencies. During COVID, I think I mentioned this to you once before, during COVID, when regulations came out, there were several regulations came out on December 23rd, and we had that information already sort of prepped, managed, and fine-tuned on our website before U.S. government agencies had them. So we're really proud of the work that our team has done.
That's awesome, right? And then one other thing that you mentioned is about the webinar program, right? And two interesting stats you mentioned. One is the retention of clients who attend the webinar went up, but also the revenue per client also went up if they had a touch point with a digital event or webinar. And since you all have been very successful at that, any learnings in terms of how do you actually create great content and attract people and engage them? Like, I would love to sort of hear your thought process in terms of how can companies think about creating like a really good program?
It requires preparation. This is not, I strongly believe this. This is not something you quickly pull together, put a few slides together, put some visuals together and a few stats, and then hope it works. In our most recent webinar last week, we worked on a script for 2 months. We worked on a script. We had proprietary research that we conducted around the use of AI for HR professionals. So we had unique content that was proprietary to us that no one had actually seen before. We looked at information in-house in terms of how we've been using this, but also how third parties are using this. We started with basics in terms of understanding the topic, defining the topic, summarizing what people are going to actually learn and walk away from. And then every single step of the way, we evaluated that content to make sure, are we hitting the price? Are people going to spend? If someone's prepared to give you 30 or 40 minutes of their very busy day, you better make sure that you're giving something of value. So I feel really, I feel very strongly about that. In fact, we postponed one of our webinars recently because I didn't think the content was strong enough. And then we were able to build it, and we rescheduled it for 2 or 3 weeks later. So you got to be relentlessly focused on how you're adding value and what people can do to sort of take away real learnings for them to give you 40% of their time.
That's a great point, Warren. I think to your point, really good content with a lot of learnings from good speakers attracts audience, and then it sort of compounds eventually when you start putting in the prep that you need. So
that's right. And I also have to say, you can't be promotional. Of course, we're all in business. We all are interested in making, but if people don't want to feel like they're being sold to, people do want to make sure that they're getting valuable information. And wherever possible, particularly in cases that, as I explained to you during COVID and so forth, we had live Q&A. People like the content, but we find also that people really want to understand what it means for them. And if you have the ability to have that engagement where people can ask very specific questions, either in a chat functionality or live with a particular speaker, that's really helpful. People feel that they have a unique need or question, and they'd like to be heard.
That's awesome. Wait, one point I want to touch upon is the growing importance of video in general, right? And a lot of people are, used to consuming that bite-sized content in all these different platforms.
Yeah.
Just want to hear your thoughts on like video and like how you all are thinking about using video to expand the audience reach.
We have video capabilities in-house, and we also work with other outside vendors to sort of take videos and get quick pieces of information. I find it really helpful for demonstration of our capabilities, whether it's our SaaS platform or whether it's integration in terms of how we work, in terms of our product offerings. We've also used it a lot for training and education. We've created, when we do product launches, we've created a day in the life of an HR professional or a manager with employees who is managing that sort of manager and employee relationship from an HR standpoint. And so we will be able to show in a video a day in the life of how someone interacts with their employees, how they interact with our technology, the capabilities of our technology. I think it's very easy. It's easier to comprehend and visualize the capabilities of technology if you can actually see how it's being used, the visuals on the screen, how the reporting works. And that's one of the things that we have found successful.
That's great, Laura. That's great.
We use video also in our advertising and our lead generation programs.
Right, makes a lot of sense. And one, I think you sort of mentioned about in the beginning that Paychex does a lot of different products, right? Like they have obviously the payroll product, but you have the benefits product, the retirement product, etc. It's a whole suite of products. How does your team sort of think through which product to market to? Like, I'm just curious to understand. It's a multi-product, multi-geography kind of a company. How does the team work across those different products?
So we're one brand. So we do an awful lot of work on our website. We have a lot of visitors to our website. We have prospects, we have existing customers, we have the employees of our existing customers, we have future employees of Paychex, we have analysts, we have a lot of people coming to our website. So we are very, very focused on the user experience and understanding personas on paychex.com. We also have a sales organization that we support. So my team not only manages, our web presence and our digital presence and our lead generation, we also do sales support and sales enablement for our sales organizations. And we have multiple sales organizations. But my team is very well organized. I have a magnificent leadership team, and we meet regularly to share information in terms of content development, editorial content that we're working and leveraging together, so that product specific or segment specific programs are shared across our entire organization so that we can leverage it. Because we don't want to sort of appear, we talked also about how important the brand is. We don't want to appear disjointed. We want to appear integrated so that everything works together and is integrated, which is why brand guidelines are so important, but messaging is important. I'm very, very keen also on a messaging framework. We have a consistent messaging framework, whether it's in our public relations, our press releases, our PR activities, in our social media content and information, as well as in our lead generation or demand generation programs. So it is a complicated website, We have a broad-based portfolio, but it is under the Paychex brand, and we have opportunities to fine-tune the customer journey on our website and to be able to qualify prospects and existing customers to let them know what is the best opportunity available for them and to get them over to speak to our sales teams.
That's great, Warren. We sort of spoke a lot about brand building. One sort of thing I'm curious to hear perspective on is just how you think the marketing will evolve in the next 5 to 10 years, right? I think Google search is getting disrupted, right? Social seems to be playing a very important role in how people discover, right? Gen Zs are using communities and different platforms to discover
Right.
products. Would just like I want to hear your thoughts on where it's evolving and how you think people should be prepared for it.
Yes, 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 and yes. Everything you said is absolutely true. We're constantly monitoring things that are taking place with Google. We have a Google representative. I meet with him regularly and the entire team. We're testing and evaluating everything. We're being very data driven. We're determining where we're impacted, where we're not impacted, and what we need to do differently, or in addition to what we're already doing. I do think from a marketing standpoint and a brand standpoint, the strongest businesses will invest in their brand. I mean, this is not something that's an overnight phenomenon. Look at the best companies, both consumer companies and B2B companies. Those companies that invest in their brand for all the reasons that we've discussed, I think that's never going to go away. I also think a relentless focus on customers, which is understanding their unmet needs, understanding their behaviors and what drives their behaviors, understanding their journey and their path to purchase, as well as once they do become a customer, understanding that whole customer journey in terms of that relationship and interaction with the customer and your company, mapping that out, understanding what a customer need is at every stage of the customer journey, anticipating questions, anticipating needs, and creating touch points at every stage of that journey to not just support them, but to really delight them and to develop a relationship with them. That is going to be key, whether it's digital, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's through chat, whether it's through an AI interface.
Yeah.
That anticipation and support of a customer need and the customer experience is going to be critical.
Great. Two follow-up questions on that one, Warren. Great. Well summarized. Any B2C/B2B brands that you would sort of admire and feel like, you know what, that those companies are doing the brand right? Anything that comes to your mind immediately? I know it's a
Yeah. There are plenty of examples. I'm probably not going to give one off the top of my head. Just I'm here to support kind of the Paychex brand at this point.
That's great. Awesome, Warren.
I hope you don't mind. I'm obviously there are great companies everywhere, and how companies sort of deal with challenges and then overcome challenges. Those are really important. Again, I don't think this is appropriate for your purposes, but take a look at some of the things that are going on in the Olympics this week. I actually think that there are some great companies and great sponsors and great there's a lot of good work from a marketing standpoint going on during the Olympics right now.
That's great, Warren. And the second follow-up question I had was, you sort of mentioned about really going deeper into the unmet customer needs and anticipating what the customer would want so that you can support it in the right way. How should marketing teams think about getting to that insight or being in close touch with customers and empathize with them? Like, should they set up regular customer conversations? Should they meet them in events? What's your in general guidance to teams who want to get to the bottom of this?
Yeah, all of the above. It's important. We're sitting on huge amounts of data. So we've been in business for 52 years. We pay 1 in 12 private sector employees. So for 50 years, we have a lot of data and information on who our customers are, what they need, what industries they're in, what geographies they're in, how they're hiring people, how they're paying people. We, of course, it's anonymized. We don't share this information with anyone, but we have great insight in terms of at a very large level what customers need and at what stage of growth they're in, and at that stage of growth, what are the offerings or services that they might require. But at the same time, we work very, very closely with partners like CPAs. So we have relationships with CPA associations as well as CPA partners, with financial advisors, with franchises. So we work very closely with those organizations, those institutions and people, really, to understand the marketplace, what's needed, what's not needed, what are the unmet needs. One of the things that marketing is responsible for, in my opinion, is marketing has to help the organization answer two really critical questions: where to play and how to win. And that's not easy, because in a B2B environment, people don't have huge budgets. People don't have limitless budgets. So you can't be all things to all people.
Right.
You have to really segment your marketplace to understand what is required in those particular segments, which segments are most important to you, and you can disproportionately put resources in those segments or micro segments that are more valuable to you. But the whole organization needs to support that. So everything one does, whether it's the product that you develop, the service that you provide, the offerings and promotions that you use to be able to target and segment those customers, the understanding of those market segments that are most important is really a critical, I think, function and responsibility of the marketing team.
And to your point, it's definitely a company strategy question that gets decided. Marketing can support it, right? It's not the marketing only.
Yeah, it's not marketing's off on our own kind of doing this. We clearly need to work cross-functioning with our sales organization to make sure that we have an integrated go-to-market strategy, and our product offerings and our service approach as well. Our service, the way in which we serve our customers.
Yeah, but the framework you said was very good. Where to play and how to win, so that you can disproportionately allocate capital into those segments where the business needs. I think that's a good way to think about and take a step back and sort of understand, where should I put my dollars in. Great.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. One sort of last question from my end. Since you've sort of been in the marketing leadership at a fast-growing public company for the last 6-7 years, any advice that you have for folks who want to actually get to the marketing leadership at some time down the line? Any learnings from your own personal experience in terms of what worked for you, what didn't work?
Sure, of course. I mean, obviously, hard work is a given.
Right.
I also think it's important to be prepared and come with data. When you're in a meeting, when you have a seat at the table, number one, you should have a seat at the table. But when you do have a seat at the table, be prepared, be analytical, have data, back up information, share results, be open, be transparent, be, authentic, work cross-functionally. If you find that you are in an organization and you're only meeting with other marketing people, that isn't going to be as helpful as if you are reaching across to your colleagues cross-functionally. Meet with the finance team, meet with the sales team. The sales teams have lots of experience meeting with customers, and it's really important that marketing sales work very closely together. Work with your sales organization or service organization. So work cross-functionally, get to know people in other departments, really understand your differentiated value proposition, and those other organizations and departments within your company can help you understand that. People want you to help solve problems. Volunteer for stretch assignments.
Right.
If any of my employees come to me and say, hey, I saw this sort of issue, I'd like to really kind of get involved in stuff, I would be thrilled, right? So ask for a stretch assignment. Look to be, a volunteer to look at exploring something new, trying new technology. I have a small team of people who are evaluating our AI capabilities. We can't load any AI, we can't bring any AI formally into our organization, but we have a couple of test areas we're looking at. So I have a team of people kind of exploring how we should be using it in terms of content development, A/B testing, headline testing, just sort of cordon off safe areas where we can kind of test AI within our information. And so I've asked, sort of teams to do some special projects, if you will, to explore that. And then finally, to be successful in marketing, you have to be relentlessly focused on the customer. You have to understand the customer journey. You have to anticipate their needs. You have to get to know the data around who they are, what they need, what they want, and then how you, company-wise, or a marketing leader in a company, how you can really establish that differentiated value proposition to position your company and your brand appropriately.
That's great, Mohammed. Very, very well summarized. And finally, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate you coming on the call and transparently sharing what's happening. I know Paychex is a public company. There is only so much you can share, but really appreciate you coming on the call and sort of transparently sharing all the thoughts. It's been an insightful discussion.
It's my pleasure. I always want to support other marketing leaders across the organization and across different industries.
Thank you, Mohammed. Appreciate it.